My good friends, I gained weight and it ain't muscle. Let's get into it. That's right, over the last year and a half, I managed to gain about 15 pounds. And I wasn't going to the gym, so this is probably, let's be honest, 15 pounds of fat. And the purpose of this video is to try to explore what happened during this time so you can avoid getting in the same situation. However, I want to preface this video by saying that there's nothing wrong with gaining weight. You know, we live in this culture where if you gain a few pounds, it's seen as the worst thing in the world. Well, that's not the case. If you like the way you feel when you're a little bit heavier, that's okay. You don't have to do anything about it. But I know my own body and I know I felt better 15 pounds ago. So in my case, it's not desirable and I'm going to do something about it. But let's get into this video. So a little bit of history. My whole life, I've always been the skinny guy. I'm 5'10". I've been about 135 pounds ever since I was in probably 8th grade. And it didn't seem to matter what I ate. I would eat fast food or ice cream. You know, I don't even know how many bags of Doritos I've had in my life. But in spite of that, I never seemed to gain any weight. And some of this could be because my lifestyle was pretty active. I'm really into skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding. I never had a gym pass, but usually there was a gym included with work or school. So I would go to the gym pretty regularly. Now, all that changed recently, and you can probably guess what happened. Yeah, the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, there was a lot of extra stress. I'm a frontlines hospital worker. I'm an internal medicine doctor working in the hospital wards. I was doing extra shifts, night shifts, and for better or for worse, actually it's probably for worse, people would feel sorry for me. They would give me donuts all the time. There were free donuts at the nursing lounge or the doctor's lounge. And I would capitalize on this. I would sometimes eat 1, 2, even I think I even had 3 donuts during a shift one time. And not just donuts, we'd have all kinds of snacks, home-baked cookies, all this kind of stuff at work. So I would find myself working and then munching away throughout the course of the 12-hour shift. In addition to the added stress at work and the stress eating, the gym closed. My work used to have a gym that I would go to fairly often just to run for a bit on the treadmill, lift some weights. That shut down during the pandemic, so one of my main sources of exercise was gone. But I think even more important than the added work-related stress and the stress eating and the lack of a gym was I stopped wearing clothes. Let me explain. During the pandemic, most hospital workers traded in dress clothes for scrubs. If you've ever worn scrubs, you know that it's really comfortable, pajama-like material with nice stretchy waistband. So because I was only wearing scrubs, I didn't really notice that over time, the pants were starting to get a little bit tighter because it's elastic. It would just sort of expand. Also, keep in mind, this is the middle of 2021 and the styles changed. Skinny jeans, skinny clothes in general were dead and replaced by much looser fits. So even when I wasn't wearing scrubs, I would throw on this old pair of skinny jeans. It wouldn't fit. And I'd think, oh, this is just because it's out of style. Like who even wears this? Look how uncomfortable this thing is. I should have gotten rid of this years ago. So I would blame it on just the styles changing, the clothes being outdated, as opposed to myself putting on a few pounds. The end result of all of this, increased work-related stress, bad diet, lack of exercise, changing my clothes, all of this eventually led to me putting on a few pounds and not really even noticing what was happening. But eventually, the signs became unmistakable. At first, I noticed that when I would sit down, I would have a little bit of a gut that would hang over just the front part of my belt. And again, I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought I was still wearing old-fashioned clothes. Maybe the clothes were a little bit too tight. Maybe that's the real problem. But that's probably the first thing that I noticed. Then I would notice that it would feel okay during the day, but then after a meal, it would actually push up against my shirt. And if I had a button-down shirt, I could actually feel it tugging at each of the buttons. Now, eventually, this would move on to not just including the front of my belly, but also the sides too, like the love handle area. I would kind of feel a little bit of tightness there as well. Then I started to notice that if I wasn't paying attention, if I was looking at my cell phone, looking down, I could have a little bit of a double chin that would just barely pop into view. So that's probably the next thing that I noticed. But even more concerning for me is that when I would start to do the activities that I used to really enjoy, like skateboarding or snowboarding, it just wouldn't feel right. I would feel like I was heavier up top and then my legs just weren't, it's almost like they weren't strong enough to support my body, even though that wasn't true. But I just didn't feel as good doing it. Then I would even notice a little bit of jiggling when I would go over bumps on my snowboard. And so all this finally had me concerned enough that I eventually bought a scale. I invested in a scale, and then I plugged it in, and then when I stood on it, I thought it was broken. It read 153 pounds. And so this was, I mean, technically almost 20 pounds heavier than I used to be. And so I thought, oh, it's got to be just like my clothes. You know, maybe the shirt's made out of lead or something. So I took off all my clothes, got completely naked, stood on the scale, 151 pounds. So that's the heaviest I've ever been. And still, I'm kind of in denial a bit. I was thinking maybe it's just like water weight or something. So I, went to sleep and then checked myself the next day after not drinking anything, throughout the night. And it was still right around 150 pounds. So, no question about it. I did put on a few pounds throughout the course of the pandemic. But you know what they say, the first step to finding a solution is to admit that there's a problem. And I definitely did feel better a year and a half ago when I didn't have this extra weight. Now, I understand it's not a huge deal. It's not like I gained, 50 pounds or, there's probably some people who are saying that I've got body dysmorphia or I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But, I know how I felt in my body. I've had this body for a few decades now. And this just doesn't feel quite right. So I want to do something about it. Some changes that I'm going to make are, number one, exercise more often. Now the gym at my hospital is open. I have no excuse. I'm actually going to start going to it on a regular basis again. I'm also going to be a little bit more careful with what I eat. Instead of the fries, cheeseburger, and a vanilla shake, maybe I'll get just the cheeseburger and a Diet Coke. And finally, I'm just going to try to live a more healthy lifestyle in general. I'm going to try to go to sleep at a more reasonable hour, get some more rest, try to manage stress levels a little bit more. And, now the last surge in the pandemic has calmed down a little bit. So my work schedule is a little bit more normal. So I think that's going to make it a little easier for me to get back into a healthier day-to-day lifestyle. And there you go. I wanted to make this video because I used to think that I was the guy who would never gain weight no matter what happens, no matter what sort of diet or lack of exercise I had. And I found out over the last year and a half that that's just not true. Anyway, in the next video, I will try to describe how these lifestyle changes are working out, no pun intended. And hopefully we'll see some good results. And I'll see you guys next time.